Fisher is our guest. And Barbara, get out some of the websites for folks to find out more. We'll put them up on screen. We're simulcasting the radio show at prisonplanet.tv right now. Then when I come back about 5-10 minutes into the next segment, start taking phone calls for the rest of the hour for listeners. We appreciate you giving us so much time. Continue with what's happening and the moves to try to put vaccines in foods and so much more.
Yes, the website is www.nvic.org. That's for National Vaccine Information Center, nvic.org. And there's a lot of free information there, a lot of resources, other websites you can go to, and I just urge everybody to become as educated as you can about vaccination before you or your child gets vaccinated.
Absolutely. What about the moves to put vaccines in mosquitoes, to make us take our shots, to put it in food?
Yeah, there is a lot of experimentation going on. They are trying to come up with ways that they can get these vaccines to populations without people really thinking they're getting vaccinated. In other words, rather than putting a needle in your arm, they're looking at novel ways to deliver vaccines. And what they're not, and certainly food, putting them in foods like vegetables. There was a plan. They talked about, mosquitoes who would then transfer these vaccines. But what they don't stop to consider is what can happen when someone gets vaccinated. You can always have an adverse reaction. When I was going over these documents that I talked about I had published in the 1990s, there was a super vaccine that they talked about in the mid-90s. They actually had a press conference in Washington. And what they were talking about is all the world governments coming together to finance the development of a super vaccine. They called it the Holy Grail. And in this vaccine, which was an oral vaccine that would be given at the moment of birth to every child in the world as they emerged from the womb, the vaccine would contain 20 to 30 different viral and bacterial antigens, raw DNA, that would be injected into the cells of the body and be time-released. And I remember at the time I thought, what happens if there is a reaction on the first time release? How do you get that vaccine out of the body? It's really, we don't understand that we have given people total power to develop vaccines and drugs, etc., and there's no oversight on what they're doing. They may think it's a good idea, but what about the people?
And these are private companies that then lobby the government to try to force you to take the vaccines. And even if you believe vaccines are good, they admit they don't give a baby a lot because it overwhelms them. Imagine 20-plus things orally given to a brand-new baby, and it won't matter how many die. They'll just say, the babies are all dying, but we got to get rid of the population, but it has nothing to do with the vaccines. This is so sick.
Well, I think that we just have to understand what's going on, and we have to become activist citizens. If we're all apathetic and we just say, let somebody else take care of it, we eventually get the government we deserve. We have to stand up as individuals, become involved, and make our voices heard. As you point out in your film, if we don't do that, then we're going to be in chains.
Well, there are hundreds of different vaccine companies. They all want to try to make them mandatory. Someday will it be thousands of vaccines where you get hundreds of injections a month? Or, when does this end?
I know that there's more than 2,000 clinical trials around the world that are testing and developing several hundred vaccines. My question has always been, the assumption is that more vaccination is going to equal long-term health, better long-term health. I think we need to take a look, though, at the last quarter century. As we've tripled the numbers of doses of vaccines we're giving our children, what we've seen is a corresponding rise in chronic disease and disability.
Like Crohn's.
Pardon?
Like Crohn's. We've got a break, Barbara. I want to come back and talk about this rise. The more vaccines, the more disease, the more problems, the more autoimmune problems, and also the bird flu vaccine that's killed a bunch of people in trials as well. And they admit it's killing people, and they say, hey.
With food prices soaring to all-time highs.
He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Fisher, expert on vaccines, started and still heads up the largest and most active and best informed group out there exposing the dangers of vaccines and how they're trying to force people to take them. The situation with them trying to mix in live bird flu with the big batches of vaccines they were testing for the flu. When I Googled it, I found all these mainstream British and German papers with separate companies and the homeless being given experimental bird flu shots and dying, and the authorities admitting they died from it. They told them it was regular flu shots. I mean, it's just getting crazier and crazier to the point of we're just kind of accepting of this out-of-control behavior now. Like, oh, that's just what they do.
Well, you know, what I was really, a couple of weeks ago, I guess it's about a month ago now, the FDA, which meets on a regular basis, I was actually a consumer rep on the FDA committee between 1999 and 2003, learned a lot about the workings of the FDA, and that committee is a committee that the companies who want to license new vaccines come forward and present their data like they presented on Gardasil. I was actually there when the first go round on Gardasil occurred. I wasn't there when the committee voted on whether or not to license it, but about a month ago there was a suggestion that they should be allowed to test bird flu vaccine on 6-month-olds. And this is the H5N1 avian flu vaccine. And I remember thinking, we don't have an avian flu epidemic, first of all. I mean, there were some people who died who were in close contact with birds over in Asia. I mean, you have to practically kiss the bird in order to get this avian flu. And the bird flu epidemic that they predicted has not taken place. And yet they are aggressively researching development of avian flu virus vaccine. So that occurred about 4 weeks ago, and then I think it was February 27th that there was this article that was published in that H5N1 avian flu viruses, live avian flu viruses, had somehow contaminated regular flu vaccine that is, given out all over the world. And it was a plant in Austria. And they confirmed eventually that yes, there were contaminated lots of vaccine contaminated with this H5N1 bird flu virus, live virus. And it was some worker in Czechoslovakia who decided to inject the vaccine into, I think it was ferrets.
It was ferrets.
Ferrets. It was just something that was done, I guess, on a regular basis. Some little guy in a lab in Czechoslovakia who reported and said, wait a minute, all the ferrets are dying. And that's how
they also said it would have been perfect for it to mutate with the regular flu and become highly contagious and airborne. Did you see the London Telegraph article? I'm going to put it on screen. Homeless people die after bird flu vaccine trial in Poland. Did you see that? 23 of them died?
I have not seen that, no.
But that's what I mean. There's actually hundreds of these. You can't keep track of it all. They told them it was a regular flu vaccine, paid them to take it. They gave it to 300 and something, and 20 plus died. Just Google homeless people die after bird flu vaccine trial in Poland. It's up on screen right now, London Telegraph. So, that's just how it works now.
I wondered, because again, I've sat here and watched this for 27 years. Back in the 1990s, late 90s, early 2000s, they decided to lower the age for flu vaccine, which has always in this country been 65 years and older. They lowered it to 55, I think, and then they lowered it down to 50. And then the next thing I knew, they decided that 6-month-old babies had to get it, and then they said that every child between 6 months and 18 years old should get a flu vaccine every year. And I thought to myself, why is there such a push for influenza vaccine when the majority of people do not have flu, and yes, it's annoying, and yes, you're out for, a week or whatever trying to get over it. I mean, true influenza, because a lot of flu-like illness is not actually influenza.
Yeah, it's some other virus or bacteria. Now, here's the $64 million question. Every day if I Google vaccine deaths in news, I see scores of articles where it's killing people all over the place, and they admit it. Then they say, you know what, we're going to give it to babies. And when the babies have a convulsion, they're going to charge the parents for beating them up and say shaken baby syndrome. And it's all compartmentalized, and it's a way to test the soft kill. It's a way to train the doctors to not report it properly, to just be used to everybody dying around them or getting sick around them, or everybody getting Crohn's, then finding the viruses from the vaccines in their intestines, as you know. That's been confirmed. And it's just institutionalizing that we shoot you up with it, you die, and that's the end of it. I just gave you the article where it's killing homeless people and nobody gets in trouble.
Well, I mean, I think we do have to pause and say, why are so many highly vaccinated children